Hey, good morning. How are you today? Uh, there have been many changes since the last time we met. I hope you noticed spring is here. Uh, just a second. Um, I was saying that this is the ISSE Institute of South Europe, and I am Jordi Griera, your today's facilitator. I live in Spain, in a small Mediterranean sea town by the sea, and I am a member of the team that is putting together this course. In their name, I am very honored to welcome you to this session. This is session 3 of the online course 1 on human values, dedicated to truth. Let me start with some practical advice. We are recording. It will be for the benefit of all that today can't be here with us, and also for those of us who will want to see it again later. But you will see that there is a small light or point, blinking point at the left of your screen. That means we are recording. Whenever you see that, if you show up with your image, you will be recorded. So actually, you will be giving us permission to use your image. Don't use your camera unless you want to be recorded. But we care for your privacy, so only the presentations will be recorded, not the rest. Okay, so don't worry about that. Therefore, please keep your microphones shut and your camera off. It would be better that you don't use the chat in presentations, because the chat also comes up with your name, and maybe so if you don't want that to happen, please don't use the chat. If you don't mind, then you can use the chat. Whichever ideas or questions come up to your mind during presentations, please write them down on a piece of paper. If you haven't got one, please go and get it now, because there will be a question time at the end of the presentation. And at that time, yes, you will be able to produce your paper and put on the chat your questions. Okay. We need to know also the full name of people connected. Please kindly rename yourself if your name doesn't appear properly on the screen. You have to click on participants, and then the participants list will open, and your name will be at the top. So you click on it, and then a menu will open, and you please choose rename and put name and surname. This way, we are going to do a favor to everybody that that is actually doing, the link between participants and registered people. Okay, humanity is at a crossroads. You are not here by chance. You are here because you are sensible people, because you have concerns. And sure, you have noticed that one of the main problems today's society has is that there is no truth. Fake truth. Fake truth is there. Untruth. Truth is buried under a mountain of infinite informations that fall upon us. So today's session is very important. We're going to try to find out what is truth and how to uphold it, and what is the meaning it has for us, for each of us. And what the person that we are going to have to explain what is truth and all its implications is Jordi Bebedelis. Jordi is above all a truthful man. But you'll remember that my colleague Suzanne read his long bio on the inaugural session. So I will just recall that George is a graduated from the National Technical University of Athens. He also has a diploma in pedagogics and a master in history and philosophy of science. And he is the director of this institute. Okay. After George's presentation, there will be a question and answer time. After a brief break, Esma Gadzo-Bursic will conduct a workshop on truth. You will see that that workshop is indispensable. It will be very important to understand this value. And now I am very pleased to ask George to please begin your lesson on truth. Okay, it's all yours. George, go ahead, please.
Good morning, everybody, dear friends. Jordi, thank you for this nice introduction to this third session. I'm very pleased to be again with you this beautiful Saturday. I'm speaking to you from Greece. So we are scattered behind our screens. Everybody is in a different place of the world. We have people even outside of Europe, and this gives us a lot of joy. So with this technology, we can make good use of this technology and create a web of spiritual seekers. Like all of us, as Jordi said, we are not by chance here together because we want to know something more about life, something more about ourselves. And definitely the topic of truth has a lot to do with this. I will start now the presentation. Hope you can see it. So today we are in search of truth this morning, this beautiful morning here. And as Jordi said, indeed, we can feel spring is coming and our hearts open and also our minds open. Because in order to be able to approach this topic, indeed, we need open minds and hearts. Because truth is a topic and an object of investigation since ancient times. And this background is not by chance like this, because sometimes truth is hidden in very high mountains or behind clouds. So we need some help, and we will have the opportunity to go through some texts from ancient philosophers in order to help us to approach this topic of truth. Pondering on the value of truth is a process that takes us through various levels. The simplest level is not to lie, always to speak the truth. This is one aspect, and this is how we begin to talk about truth with children in education. Because children, like all of us, understand that truth is associated to facts. Actually, this is the common understanding of all people. And in philosophy, this is known as the correspondence theory of truth. The correspondence theory of truth states that the truth or falsity of a statement is determined by how it relates to the world and whether it accurately describes, that means corresponds with the world. That's why it's called the correspondence theory of truth. Our words should correspond with the facts. It is a traditional model which goes back to Aristotle, who defines it as follows: to say that what is not, or what is not is a falsehood. But to say that what is, and what is not, is a truth. Sounds a little complicated, but actually is very simple. That means whatever you can perceive with your senses, you have to be truthful, honest, and to convey this. If something is like this, you have to say, yes, it is like this, not to say the opposite. This is the common understanding, as I said, of truth. However, there is a higher aspect of truth. And our attempt today is to inquire into this aspect and look for this deeper meaning of the value of truth. And in order to begin with this inquiry, with this deeper meaning, we will start with the words of Satyasai. Truth is not merely telling the facts about what you see, hear, or feel. These are only temporal truths. Facts relate to momentary appearances, whereas truth relates to unchanging reality. It remains the same for all times, past, present, and future. It is not affected by changes in time or place. It is beginningless, eternal, ever-existent. It is the basis and cause of all. This, of course, is a definition of truth which goes far beyond of what we normally understand with the word of truth. And this is can be connected with what we heard before 2 weeks from Raksha, who elaborated on the value of love. True love has no beginning nor end. It exists in all the categories of time, in the past, present, and future. This is the kind of love that can fill man with lasting happiness. So we see that almost the same, these also are from the words of Satyasai. If we compare the two quotations that we just read, we'll see that they are almost identical. So in this high level of understanding the values, these two main values of truth and love are identical. Actually, there are different facets of one reality. This reality, which is somehow hidden behind this apparent multiplicity, which is perceived through the senses. This can be easily illustrated with some nice examples. This example was used in the first session, the introductory session, in order to explain what educare is about. In the iceberg, we can see what is above the sea. This is a part, and maybe we think that only this is the iceberg. But if we could see under the water, we will see a much bigger and more important part. And actually, we understand that this is the foundation of the little part which is above the water. So there is much more than what we perceive, much more than what we can explain, much more than what we normally investigate. Another example we can use is with the tree, because a tree has a part which is above the ground, which is perceived, we can see it with the senses, which is the trunk, the branches, the leaves, the fruits. But also we know, although we don't see, that the foundation of the tree and the most important part of the tree is the roots. Without the roots, there is no tree. It will dry out, it will die if we cut the roots. So what is most important? Is it that we see or that which is hidden? Like this, we can say that the investigation that is going on through science of the physical world, through the senses, which has the ability to perceive in various ways the outer phenomena, is represented by the part of the tree which is above the ground. But the most important part is what is hidden under the ground. That means what is hidden behind this apparent reality, this appearance perceived by the senses. And this, what is the science which investigates this level? This is spirituality or metaphysics. We have these words from ancient Greek philosophy, physics and metaphysics, exactly because since ancient times, not only in Greece, but all over the world, people were aware about this. Maybe not the majority of the people, because maybe the majority of the people are not ready to accept that there is something more than what sees the eye. But of course, philosophy is this investigation of human mind which wants to find what is beyond. And again, another very nice illustration is with the circle. Science, this is very nicely said by Satya Sai. I remember once I had a close interaction with him, with our group from Greece, and he was explaining exactly this. Science, playing with the initial letters, said this semicircle. Why semicircle? Because investigates only the half of the truth. But the most important part is that which closes the circle. This which makes the circle full. So our knowledge also, it's complete. And this full circle is represented by spirituality, this spiritual science. Aristotle also, because I mentioned Aristotle, the book Metaphysics is of Aristotle. And in this book, in the beginning of this book of Metaphysics, he says that the real science is the science of the first cause. So this is the main, the main object of inquiry since for every human being. Sometimes we stop and ask about life. Where have I come from? Where do I go? So this is very, very fundamental to find the roots of our existence. After this, we can then, this circle, because we don't have to forget that this is a program for education. And now we speak about philosophical truths. Is it possible to convey this to children? I think it is possible, though it sounds a little difficult, but a teacher who is aware, he can find all the time the way to convey this truth in a simple way. For example, here we see the water cycle. In the primary school, all children learn about this water cycle, how the water goes through different phases. First, it is evaporated, then it's condensed, becomes rain, and then the rain becomes a river, comes again to the sea. If somebody wants to use this image, then he can connect this with all life and explain very simply to children that we have come from somewhere. We go this journey of life. This journey of life has a lot of changes, like the water has a lot of changes. But what is the final goal of our this journey of life, which is not linear? It is a circular, it is a circle. So this journey of life takes us back to the root. So the most fundamental thing is to understand what is this ocean, from where we've come, where we are going. After this, we can make to sum up what we said about truth, and to classify as that we have two aspects of truth. One we can call relative because it is related with the senses, and the other is absolute, or we can call it transcendental truth because it transcends the senses. Relative truth is the material world, the objects of the senses, the scientific truths about the world phenomena, the accurate report of how something appears as perceived by the senses. Here we use the word appearance because we cannot be sure. Is that which appears in front of us really true? Has it a permanent existence? Or it is just a phenomenon? You know, phenomenon is a Greek word. Phenomenon means that which seems to be like this. Then we have absolute truth. What is beyond the material world of the senses? The innermost essence which never changes. The unmanifested cause of all manifested reality. The one behind the many. Here we heard some very important words. Innermost essence, unmanifested cause, the one behind the many. Are we sure that this reality exists? Of course, here, this is the eternal discussion on truth, which is going on. And we know that, like in philosophy, also in our daily life, there is a part of the world, some people that they are ready, they are open to accept that, yes, indeed, there is something more. So they can start and investigate on that. And of course, there are some skeptics who all the time put some question mark about this innermost essence, the unmanifested cause, the one behind the many. But let's go back and get some information from ancient philosophers who have stayed in the history of mankind. And this proves that their sayings, their writings have a lasting value. So we can rely on what they have said. And from there, we can draw inspiration and knowledge and wisdom. One of them, of course, for the Western philosophy, for the Western thought, is Plato. Plato is really a great, unparalleled philosopher. And here you can see this very well-known fresco, which is in Vatican. It's drawn in 16th century by a very famous painter. His name was Raffaello. One who visits Vatican can see. Once I was there, and I was very glad because I've seen this many times in pictures, but I had the chance to see the real thing. And the central figures here is Plato and Aristotle, his most eminent disciple. Raffaello painted these two in the Academy of Athens, of course, in a way which was close to the understanding of his days, his age. But the important thing that is when he made the painting, each one of these two philosophers holds a book. If we magnify Plato, we will see that the book that he holds is called Timeo. Timeo is one of the dialogues written in late age of Plato and has influenced a lot the philosophy of the West. It was read, commented, translated into Latin, into all languages, during all the history of human thought and human philosophy, during the Middle Ages, during the Renaissance, and played a very, very fundamental role in the understanding of the truth in philosophy. So in this book, Timeo, there is a very important quotation which has to do very much with what we discussed so far about these two aspects of truth. Plato says, when he begins to write the book, in the beginning of the book, he says, we must first make this distinction. What is that which eternally is and has no becoming? And again, What is that which always comes to be, but never really is? The one is comprehensive by nous and logos. These are very important words in ancient philosophical language. That's why I left them untranslated. By the meaning is wisdom. Nous means wisdom, and higher reason, logos. So this faculty of human being, nous and logos, can comprehend this changeless reality, while the other is grasped by mere opinion and reasonless sensation, ever becoming and perishing, but never truly existent. You see here, Plato makes exactly this distinction that we made before about these two levels of reality, or we can say the two levels of truth. And for the first one, he just used the word that which eternally is. He does not name in a different way. He just say that it is, eternally is. So he uses the verb to be. He just uses the verb to be in order to describe this changeless reality. And for the other, which is comprehensible through the senses, he uses the word becoming. That means all the time changing. Birth and death, all the time a circle. This verb to be is very, very important. Actually, this is the first verb that we all learn. When we start speaking, one of the first things that we learn is to express this verb. It is, because we want to speak about the world, the most fundamental verb is to be. And here we can see a really astonishing relation between the languages, the ancient languages, Greek, Latin, and Sanskrit. In all these three languages, where all philosophy was written actually, we see that the verb to be is the same. The root is almost identical. S is the root, both in Greek and Latin, and in Sanskrit the root is as. From there we have in Greek the first singular, esmi. In Sanskrit, as you can see, is almost the same as me. Of course, in Latin it's a little variated, sum. But look at the third singular, esti is in Greek, est in Latin, asti in Sanskrit. So this is very important because we see that these languages are connected, are relative languages. That means also that the philosophy and the thought and the civilization, this ancient civilization, which looks very far, the Indian civilization, which was built on Sanskrit language, then the Greek and the Western civilization, once they were together, they come from the same root. And this is very important because one aspect of this program of Satyasai education is to realize the unity in diversity. By going back, we can see, when we go to the roots, we can see this unity. But what I wanted to point out here is that the neutral participle of this verb in Greek is eson and becomes on, in Latin ens, and in Sanskrit sat. This is etymologically the same. This word on, which is very important in philosophy, that's why sometimes, maybe you know, philosophy is called ontology, from this word on, because it is an investigation of what is really is, about truth. And this in Sanskrit is called sat, the same meaning exactly, that which is. And it is not only the meaning the same. What I want to point out here is that it's also etymologically the same word, comes from the verb to be. So on in Greek, sat in Sanskrit means being. If we want to translate it into English, we use this word being. From the word sat comes the word satya. We say Satya Sai, education in human values. Satya Sai is, of course, the name of the founder, Satya Sai Baba, who has founded this program. But the word Satya means also truth. That which is. The literal meaning of Satya means that which is. And this is truth, that which really is. So we see Satya Sai education is very much connected with truth and something which stays the same, never changes. Because the human values are universal ideals that never change. There were all the time in the past, everywhere, in all cultures, and it is still, and everywhere, this never changes. So these eternal, perennial, universal ideals is what is the core of this program. And this is very much conveyed with the word Satya, which means truth, that which is. Now I would like to go and to show you this picture of Jesus. Jesus, of course, has spoken about truth. And in John, we see this quotation, and you shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. Of course, here again, Jesus does not speak about the truth that we perceive with the senses. By using the word truth, he means a higher reality, which is not only there, but has the ability to free the soul, to give real peace and happiness to the soul and freedom that we all search. What is important in this picture, maybe you can see here in the hello of Jesus is written on. This was the word on. This is written not with omicron, but with omega, as we say in Greek, which is a long O because it is masculine, but it is the same word, on. So this word on, being, was used even from the first Christians to name Jesus, because this understanding of the word was all the time connected with something divine, something changeless. And if we want to go a little further in the past, we can go to the Bible, and there, I suppose you know this important story that Moses went on the mountain. This is described in the second book of the Bible, which is in Greek was translated Exodus. Actually, in Hebrew is Shemot of the Torah. The Torah are the 5 first books of the Bible. And there, Moses sees in the burning bush, in front of him, God appears. And then Moses asks, how shall I call you when I go back to my people? Go back from the mountain to my people. What is the name that I will say for you? And the answer is a very important answer, is a little cryptic and mystic. Here is in Hebrew, Ehyeh, Asher, Ehyeh. I use this because I know that we have some participants even from Israel, and we're very happy about that. So this is in the tradition of Judaism. How can we translate this saying? It is not so easy, but we normally translate it as I am. Ehyeh means I am, who I am. Very cryptic answer indeed. Maybe we can modify it and say, I am he who really is. Or, as it was translated into Greek, I am the being. This was how it was translated. Εγώ είμαι on. I am the being. And now if we go back to Plato, another very important text from another book, which is very famous, Republic. There, Plato says about the true philosopher, who is a lover of being. This is the definition that he gives. The true philosopher is born to strive towards being. And in Greek, The word is again on. Without any attachment to the multiplicity of things that are assumed to be real. He moves on with his love ever intense and steady until he has come into touch with that which really is. By that part of his soul, which is akin to this reality. And when he has come close and has been united with true being, he begets wisdom and truth. He earns the real knowledge and lives a true life, free at last from his travail. The travail of a lover, because a lover, when he loves something intensely, has a travail in his soul. When this travail is finished, only when he unites with the object of his love. And this is what is described here. So philosophy is an action of love, of intense love, for that which really is. That means for truth. You see here that Plato defines truth with this expression, that which really is. If we would like to summarize and to say what was the essence of Plato's teaching, in 3 words we will say truth, goodness, and beauty. And in order to explain what is this truth, goodness, and beauty, in Republic, in that book that I mentioned before, he gives a wonderful illustration what is the process that we can show us this truth. He describes people as prisoners in the bottom of a cave and that they see only shadows. And philosophy is this process when the prisoner gets free from the chains, he turns back, he starts climbing up, he sees that there is an exit outside, he goes outside, he sees this beautiful world, this true reality, and finally, this is the ultimate, that he sees the sun. The sun, who is the source of this beauty outside of the cave, which is the spiritual world of ideas, the eternal ideals like the human values, but before the human values, even higher than human values, the divine ideals, there is one source, the one behind the many. And this is described, this is the truth, goodness, and beauty. This sun. And this philosopher, as he says, very nicely says, he then comes back in the cave in order to explain to his fellow citizens about this truth. And Plato, now somebody maybe will say, all this is very philosophical. What has to do with education? But it is not like this. Plato connects education with this truth, because in this book, The Republic, he explains about education a lot, because he says in order to have an ideal society, you need an ideal educational system. And the main purpose of the education, as he defines in this book, is to approach and to be able to learn about this reality, this truth, goodness, and beauty. How? Not by looking outside, but reminding again what is already within. So this quotation we saw in the introduction, the first session, education is not putting knowledge in the soul which doesn't have it, just as giving sight into eyes that are blind. The capacity of knowledge is present in everyone's soul. And just as an eye turns from darkness to light, the soul has to turn away from the world of becoming towards truth. Education should be the art of orientation. Educators should devise the simplest and most effective methods to turn the soul towards the light of goodness. So you see, this is the aim of education. It is not just to teach the children some knowledge about daily life. This, of course, is important, but this is the ultimate goal. And this is also the goal of Satya Sai education. That's why a teacher who is going to approach this and to teach children, he has to be aware of these high philosophical truths, which is conveyed also by the word truth. in Greek is alithia. This is very nice if we analyze, is the a, which means not, privative, affix, and then lethe, which means in Greek forgetfulness, unawareness. So truth is that which is not forgotten. When you take away this lack of awareness, it is forgetfulness, then you remember again. That's why Plato says that knowledge, in many places of his philosophical works, he says that knowledge is recollection or awareness of what is present already within. Isn't it educare? It is exactly the concept of educare that was analyzed in the first session. And this takes us to another part of which is very important, not just the truth about the world that we spoke till now. What is the truth about ourselves? Because Satyasai has said many times that true education is not related just to the world. True education is that which is related to you and helps you to realize the true meaning of I. Let's take some time now to investigate what is this true meaning of I. Who am I? This is the fundamental question. This is the fundamental question. Who am I? Today, what is the answer that we will give? This is very funny here. iPhone, iPod, iPad, and the poor father says, I paid. Because we connect this I with all these gadgets, the I technology, the information. When we write today I, all the mind, IT, information technology. And everybody's very well aware of about this. But Steve Jobs, you know, has said something very important. Steve Jobs could create all these eye gadgets. He said, I will trade all of my technology for an afternoon with Socrates. It's very important because Steve Jobs was a wise man. He knew that there is an I, not only these devices, that is different from this I. And who was the best to investigate, to explain about this I? Socrates. Because as we said in the beginning, previous time, if we want to summarize the teaching of Socrates, we can do it in 2 words: know thyself. Give an answer to this question: who am I? So I would like to take a quotation from Socrates from another important book written again by Plato, because Socrates didn't write anything himself. This is Phaedo, and Phaedo describes the last days, the last moments of Socrates in the jail with his disciples. And what was the object of discussion during the days? Obviously, about the soul. Is it going now, Socrates, to be finished, or is there the soul will remain? So the object of this dialogue is the immortality of the soul. Socrates says, it's a very wonderful book, so many truths are there, but I take this quotation: purification consists in detaching so far as possible the soul from the body and teaching the soul the habit of collecting and bringing itself together from all parts of the body, so as to live both now and hereafter alone by itself, freed from the body as from chains. The true philosophers are always most eager to release the soul. Just this and nothing else is the philosopher's concern: the release and disconnection of soul from the body. What a definition for philosophy. This is because here Socrates, who is the founder of philosophy, he gives a definition, and he defines philosophy as the process of detaching the soul from the body. This sounds strange, but this opens a new understanding of ourselves, that we are something more than the body, something more than the mind, something which stays changeless. It is not just this part that we see day by day to change. This opens the understanding, and this is the fundamental knowledge about the self. Socrates has stayed in the history. Why? Because this was not just word, this was a realization. Even in the last moment when Socrates was taking the poison and he was going to die, he was not afraid at all. Why? Because he had realized that this body is not permanent, it's transitory, but a permanent part of himself will stay. So he was not afraid. He was not in fear. He was not sad. On the contrary, he describes how happy he was because he would unite with truth, because truth was the object of his investigation through all the life. So he's saying to his disciples, why are you crying? This is not a sign of spiritual men. Always remember that body is just a temporary dress of the soul. Give up body consciousness and develop the awareness that you are the eternal, pure, and blissful soul. Know thyself. The same exactly said by Satya Sai from a wonderful book, Jnana Vahini, which means a stream of wisdom. Look at the clouds that wander across the sky. They have no lasting relationship with the sky. They just hide it for a few minutes. Such is the relationship between your body and you. You are an immortal soul, and the body is just a temporary passing cloud which covers and hides this truth. You are not just this body which is limited by time and space. You are Sat, Chit, Ananda, eternal being, all-knowing and full of bliss. These three terms in Sanskrit are very important. Sat, we discussed about this. This is what Satya Sai uses to describe our real self. Sat, eternal being. Chit, all-knowing. Ananda, and full of bliss. I would like to connect this with a very fundamental word in this program, the word heart. We heard in the presentation about love this very important saying of Satya Sai. True education is that which originates from the heart. You should rely more on your spiritual heart than on the physical heart. Conscious is another name for spiritual heart. Keep your heart pure. This should be your main endeavor. Whatever is done with love and purity of heart will confer bliss on you. This heart is the heart of Satya Sai education. This heart is the soul, the eternal soul that Socrates was speaking about. And this word age is very important for Satya Sai education. We say education in human values is 3HV. So we use a lot this letter H for head, heart, and hands. But what is fundamental here is the heart. The heart, the spiritual heart, the higher self is he who guides the mind and the body. So heart can be connected with the higher self, and I would like again to remind you from the introductory presentation that we said that the ultimate goal of Satya Sai education is the realization of the higher self. This, again, playing with using the letter H, we can say that this heart is the headquarters of human values. And another term that is used by Satya Sai in order to describe this heart, this real self, the higher self, is the CIA, constant integrated awareness. Constant because it never changes. It's not like the mind. It's above the mind. Because the mind all the time goes up and down, up and down. Sorrow, happiness. Likes, dislikes. All the time the mind is moving. The body is changing, but this is constant. It's the changeless part of our being. Integrated because it's whole. It is full, like the full circle. Because it sees the unity. It's unifying and sees the unity behind the multiplicity. It is the awareness, this awareness that we lack, this forgetfulness is lithi, but alithya which is truth, is to get again this awareness of what already exists within. So this is very, very profound, this way to describe our higher self, constant, integrated awareness. This is the foundation. If we want to build the mansion, the house in our life, or if we, let's say, the house in the education, the fundamental basis is self-confidence, faith in this, in the higher self. Then we have self-satisfaction because we get, what is the self? As we heard before, it is pure happiness. So this happiness comes from within. We have self-satisfaction. Then we have self-sacrifice. We can offer. Sacrifice means sacrificere. That means to do sacred actions. This is the original meaning of sacrifice in Latin. So we can dedicate ourselves for sacred actions. When we do that with love, with truth, with all the values, then we reach self-realization, the realization of the higher self, which is the sun which gives light into our life. This is the purpose of Satya Sai education, is defined by Satya Sai when he inaugurated the Sri Satya Sai Institute of Higher Learning, or Sri Satya Sai University. He said at that moment, this university has not been established just to prepare you for earning degrees. The main purpose is to help you to cultivate self-knowledge and self-confidence so that each one of you can learn self-sacrifice and self-realization. Teaching you the university curricula, preparing you for the examinations and awarding you university degrees are only the means employed for the end, namely spiritual uplift, self-discovery, and social service through love and detachment. Of course, we have to see that a part of all this we discussed till now about the truth about the world, about the truth about ourselves, there are some practical aspects of truth in daily life, and normally with children we start with this. We don't use so much and difficult concepts because they cannot be grasped by the mind of the students, but we use some aspects of truth like truthfulness, honesty, judgment, spirit of inquiry, discernment, integrity, critical thinking, common sense, intuition, synthesis. All these we can build lessons and to drive children towards this direction, and as they grow, slowly they can get this higher knowledge and wisdom about what is real truth, what is the real self. Out of all these practical aspects, even more, the most important is truthfulness and honesty. Speak the truth, speak with love. If speaking truth will cause grief or pain, maybe it's better to keep silent. Simply because a statement will be welcome to the hearer, don't speak it out to win his approval. Don't have hypocrisy in your speech. Both unpleasant truth and pleasant untruth have to be avoided. Use your tongue in such a way that it can spread contentment, comfort, and joy. It's very important. Speak the truth, speak with love. These two human values, they going hand in hand. When we are going to speak, we have to ask ourselves, is it true what I'm going to say? Is there love? Or maybe it's better to become silent, to remain silent. Is it necessary really to speak? Sometimes silence is the best choice. That's why it is said that it is only in the depths of silence that the voice of truth can be heard. In speaking about silence, I think it's time also that I myself become silent. I'm coming to the end of the presentation, and I have just one more slide to close and to see that In education, we have these two aspects, because during this presentation, we took, of course, more time in order to elaborate on the philosophical approach of what is truth of the world, what is truth of ourselves. But also we said that we have to use all this material, all these concepts for education, normal education. So these two go together. One is the negative pole, let's say, of a battery, and then educare is the positive. Both together, like two wings, they can then light up this light of wisdom, of truth, and finally of peace and happiness that we all yearn for. Thank you for your attention. Now I would like to ask my friend Jordi to take up.
Yes, yes, George. Thank you so much. Very, very inspiring explanation on truth that you have made.
Thank you, Jordi.
It is now question time.